What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with a video on the X-Men just becoming the most exciting franchise in the comic book world, and also how Endgame secretly created the X-Men. So if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to never miss the videos. We are currently giving away a Marvel Legends Hasbro Infinity Gauntlet. All you gotta do is subscribe to the channel with notifications on and let me know down below. Do you agree or disagree? And if we ever hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to give away PS4 Pro, an Xbox One X, or a PS5, or the new Xbox, depending on how long it takes us to hit them numbers. So in March, it was revealed that Marvel essentially own Fox again. So Marvel Comics, it was revealed in the last few days, is going to cancel XMen Books, meaning X-Men comic book, to relaunch an entire new X-Men universe with legendary comic book writer Jonathan Hickman. The new era for the X-Men. It was just needed to be done to return the X-Men to their rightful, prominent position in the Marvel universe. That is a quote from Jonathan Hickman. So what is interesting is, to be honest, the Marvel comics haven't really been that good recently for many, many years. DC Rebirth's been kicking their ass, but it looks like the X-Men comics are coming back to Marvel, and this realistically does have a direct correlation to the X-Men appearing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Phase 4. Now, Kevin Feige's already revealed that it could take up to 5 years for the X-Men to appear visually, but it appears that the X-Men will be changing sometime starting this summer. So if you're a reader of the X-Men titles, you have to deal with the fact that it all is going to go away. Uncanny X-Men, Mr. X, the all age of X-Men books, gone. Literally all gone. With the triumphant orgasm-inducing return of the Fantastic Four, Avengers Infinity War, etc., Jonathan Hickman comes the end of the current era of X-Men book. Assuming you can consider this is an era at all, since the dawn of the MCU, Fox comic book movie rival started the X-Men have been somewhat on the outside looking in, barely being utilized during companies' crossovers and spinning their wheels within their own stories. The X-Men have been banished to the outskirts of the Marvel comic. However, to this day, they haven't admitted as much. Their biggest pop came by the way of nearly being eradicated by suddenly death clouds of Inhuman. All the while, characters of the same name reached to replace them as the dominant superpower subspecies of Marvel Comics. Didn't work, but not for lack of trying. With the breakneck speed of the most recent Uncanny X-Men crossover dissembled, it appeared that Marvel was building up to something big, and big it was, like Silver Surfer announcing the approach of Galactus. This was all to clear the field for Hickman's new era of X-Men, and we're not just talking about a reboot. Marvel and Hickman grazing the franchise, Thanos style, and beginning all over again. Essentially retconning, but essentially rebooting everything like it never even happened. They are doing this, starting with a 12-issue run of 2 books, House of X and Power of X. Both event books will run 6 issues, each set the stage for the new status quo for the X-Men line. He explained as much as he could in the comicbook.com interview. We wanted to be clear to fans, to the stores, and just as importantly to the creators who are going to be staffing these books in the future. We wanted to send a message to be very, very clear. This is a whole new era for X-Men. This is what we're doing. Hickman would elaborate on his plans for the House of X and Power X. 1. House of X is a story about a pivotal month in history of the X-Men where everything changes for mutants on Earth. And the other, for the Power of the X, is a story about the history of mutants in the Marvel universe. It works as a series and reveals and revelations, where each issue of House and then follows the Power of House, and vice versa, makes you reinterpret the issue you had previously read. And then obviously at the end, they crash together in a way that propels us forward into the new X universe. So it is fascinating that Marvel are putting so much behind their comic book universe. Finally, he continued to say this: if by sci-fi elements you mean some basic evolutionary biology, a little genetic, a lot of contact, or you know how mutants bend, then sure, we'll be doing all that stuff. Hickman then discussed the mutant metaphor. I'm not sure how you get away from doing metaphor when you're writing X-Men book. I suppose narratively, the problem nowadays is interpretation. Are we talking about a standing for marginalization group, or the metaphor simply by substituting of the word different for special, or the real modern complication of atomization, where everything is segmented to such a degree that there are no stories, which means something to everyone, where the psychological expectation is something catered or personalized. He then addressed the Marvel plans to launch an entire new universe of X book following the conclusion of House of X and Power of X. At the conclusion of the 12 weeks of the House of X and Power of X, we will be launching an entire new universe of X book. Some will be traditional fare. Some carry through our ideas presented in the House of X and the Power of X. Some books are completely new concepts. I personally will be writing the ongoing flagship of X books. Hickman details that Marvel is already working on what he describes as Wave 1 of books. More details will be revealed about them at San Diego Comic-Con later this year. He also notes that they have complete plans for Wave 2 book and are planning to hire talent. Finally, Hickman detailed on how he sees the X-Men. I think the X-Men is about finding family that never knew you had. One that accepts you for who you are, who loves you at your best and worst, and who shares your dreams for what the world can be. You know, everyone wants to love somebody. Everyone wants to be loved. It's pretty great when you find both, especially if you're, say, a weirdo mutant with eyeballs covering your bodies. If you've been following the Age of XMen books or Uncanny X-Men, it's not hard to suspect that something big was on the horizon. Most of the stories being seeded and told can only end in a couple of ways. What do you make of the return of Jonathan Hickman and Marvel cancelling and relaunching the whole of X-Men book? Are we on the verge of the late 80s and early 2000s of the X-Men dominance? So this literally confirms that there's something big going, and this is MCU based because it seems like they're going to be launching the X-Men in the comic book universe, then launching the X-Men in the MCU. Jonathan Hickman has a faultless pedigree, successfully reinventing both the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. His story numbers among some of the most popular comic books ever. Both adventures of the recent years and his Infinity event inspired a lot of major plot and characters. Beats in Avengers Infinity War. Even the idea of story focused on Thanos' quest to obtain the latest MacGuffins was lifted straight from Hickman's book. He created the Black Order. He brought them to Wakanda. The Russo brothers have openly expressed their admiration for Hickman's writing, suggested their return for the helm of Secret Wars, which is insane. So the pedigree of what Hickman is actually saying is pretty surprising, but not really, because the film rights for the X-Men have returned to Marvel Studios after the Disney Fox acquisition, and the decision maker at Marvel are now even working out how to incorporate the X-Men into the MCU. The high-profile relaunch will surely catch their eye, meaning these Hickman's books could form the basis of the future of the X-Men movies. The timing seems more coincidence than intentional, as they have the stars have aligned at just the right moment. But could this mean there's reason to hope the X-Men could once again become Marvel's greatest brand? Only time will tell whether this plan works or not. So it is a bit obvious that obviously the X-Men will be rebooted after Dark Phoenix, but it just seems like this is all the information they're going to use to reboot the X-Men inside the MCU. Now this ties back to essentially Avengers Endgame creating the X-Men. Now which snap it was isn't really that clear, but the second snap could be the key to expanding the X-Men inside the MCU. The cosmic energy that the second snap gave off could scatter the power of the Infinity Stones across the whole galaxy. If this did happen, then anyone could unknowingly be hit with the combination of the cosmic energy and the Infinity Stone atoms and then see their own X gene being activated. This would be a great move too, as it could instantaneously help establish a cosmic X-Men in the MCU, which realistically, as we already have Scarlet Witch, and they've essentially already retconned how she got her powers and what her powers are, combined with Quicksilver essentially being an X-Men as well, it would be really easy to integrate the X-Men into the MCU. Although everyone seems to think the multiverse is how they are going to incorporate the X-Men into the MCU, it would make a lot more sense if the finger snap actually was how the X-Men were awoken inside the MCU. So anyway, guys, let me know. Do you think this new X-Men comic book run is really how they intend to introduce the X-Men inside the MCU? It would make a lot of sense if that was the case, because then they combine the two, and then finally Marvel Comics could be great once again after DC's dominated with the DC Rebirth for such a long time. It would make sense why Marvel cancels all the current X-Men comic books to reboot them, because obviously they've got the right back to the X-Men now, so it makes sense to build the comic book up and then just smash them inside the MCU. And that would be freaking awesome if that is the plan that Kevin Feige and everyone has for the X-Men inside the MCU. Obviously, only Mr. Kevin Feige and Bob Iger and people high up in the Disney and Marvel world really know what's going on with the X-Men. But we do know it's going to take up to 5 years until the X-Men really appear inside the MCU. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch you later.